Welcome to Italics, television for the Italian American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. On the 50th anniversary of The Godfather, Fred Gardaphé, Distinguished Professor of English and Italian American Studies at Queens College, joined us at CUNY TV to discuss new perspectives on Italian American studies. Fred, welcome again to Italics.
Thanks for having me here again.
This is a regular meeting every week, right? We have to set things straight. So we did our summer Italian diaspora summer study seminar after 2 years of COVID from 2019 to 2022. Maybe there are a couple of other things we might want to discuss. The seminar, how did it go?
Well, to me, the seminar was the absolute fantastic return to something that Italian American Studies has always needed but never had until we developed it back in Calabria and then brought it to Rome. This idea of creating an institute, a summer program for people who want to do advanced studies in Italian American studies, or even just immerse themselves into Italian American studies in ways that they can't do it with some of the top instructors, professors in the world.
We should say we do it with Roma Tre University. They give us facilities. They offer us the facilities, right, and things of that sort. So we really have a wonderful relationship with Roma Tre, and I just wanted to acknowledge their generosity, because we really wouldn't be able to do it otherwise if we had to look for a structure and things of that sort. And that speaks to the collaboration that I think is necessary, as that university, Roma Tre, has recognized, right? The collaboration between institutions there and here when we're talking about Italian American, in our case, more broadly Italian diaspora studies.
What really impressed me this year was the quality of the applicants and the corsisti that were selected and given fellowships. They exceeded my expectations. They were all pretty much on point in terms of what they were interested in, what they were developing, and they're all moving in great directions with whatever project they're working on, whether it's a pedagogical project, an academic article or book or whatever it is. It's a film. Some people work on documentary films. It was great to see that come back and be alive again.
2022 is an important year for a couple of reasons. One, we're coming out of COVID. Two, we just spoke about the seminar, having done now the 6th edition over 8 years of the seminar, but it's an anniversary year for what some might say is a debatable cultural articulation. And that is, it's the 50th anniversary of The Godfather. And what do we make of that?
I mean, I always attribute the anniversary when the novel comes out, but we're talking about the film specifically. Whatever it is, it has been an identity marker for America, not just Italian Americans or Italian diaspora, over the last 50 years. It's had that kind of impact. And I think it warrants some serious consideration about what did The Godfather do to this country.
Buonasera. Buonasera. What have I ever done to make you treat me so disrespectfully?
You know, I think back to something that the late Anne Paolucci said about The Godfather, and she said that we really can't go apoplectic, whatever, over the film, that after all it is a great film. And of course, making such a statement can also get pushback. And
well, there's a lot of Italian American activists who don't accept that. They think it's you can't say that something that they feel is offensive and harmful, you can't dismiss it by saying it's great art, and yet that's exactly what we're doing. It's not reality. Get a life.
Yeah.
The only thing I could say to those people.
Next year we're going to have another anniversary in film studies, right? Or in Italian American film studies. And that's going to be Mean Streets, which of course is I see it as the flip side of The Godfather being this sort of national, international organization, whereas instead Mean Streets is the neighborhood.
What's a mook?
A mook? What's a mook?
I don't know.
What's a mook?
You can't call me a mook.
I can't?
No.
I give you a mook. Hey,
I mean, while they're both fiction, I see Mean Street, and I've written about this in my From Wise Guys to Wise Men book. The Godfather is much more romantic romanticized sense of what gangster life is like. And Mean Streets is much more nuts and bolts. I mean, there sure is a lot of exaggeration there in terms of dramatic impact. But I do think that Mean Streets shows more of the, the day-to-day fumbling mess. Kind of the way Gates Lease does in Honor Thy Father. It's a very boring life, except when those TV moments come when people get shot and people do things to excess, which is very rare in the course of a lifetime of a gangster. Mm-hmm. So Scorsese, I always saw him as kind of the more realistic and Coppola as the more romantic, more the operatic, new wave type approach to the same issue.
I agree with you that both films are important, both within Italian-American, the Italian-American, let's say, history of cinema, but also in American cinema in general, right? But The Godfather has, as our friends Ben Lawton and Bill Del Cerro have proven years ago, or have demonstrated years ago, has spurned like, I don't know, 600-700 copies, sort of, not copies, but cheaply made, because they are bad films, right, for the most part.
But
Mafia films.
That happens in all aspects of kind of capitalistic commerce. It's like once something hits and people try to imitate it and do it, and they get away with selling it on the street with the knockoffs and the stuff like that. And that's going to happen. And if we're going to have this type of system, then we have to expect that. We just have to be able to be educated enough to tell the difference between a real and a fake, between the art and the artificial in a sense, even though sometimes it's hard to tell that difference. That's the goal of our education programs, is to, if you think The Godfather is good or bad, educate people about it. Let people respond to it. Don't think for them, teach them how to think for themselves, is what we do.
So speaking about education brings us to another topic, and it's something that we have sort of discussed ad nauseum right at the Calandra Institute amongst all of us, and that is graduate studies in Italian diaspora or in Italian American studies. I contend there are only two formally structured entities, one being the 4 courses that we put up years ago at the MA level at Queens College, the other being the Tito Asegno Professorship on alternate years at NYU. Other than that, I'm at a loss to think of any graduate program anywhere in either Italian or American studies that has any structure with regard to Italian American studies, whether it be literature, cinema, history, and so on and so forth.
When I was warned to stay away from Italian American studies when I was in graduate school, and we're talking over 40 years ago, I fought against that, and I thought for sure by now there would be a formal program in Italian American studies or Italian diaspora studies. I have worked all those years to try to build that everywhere I've been. It seems that we're actually making some progress, but I'm at the end of my career. I'm not leaving until this is done, all right? But the idea is that it shouldn't be such a hard thing to do. You have people who want to study it. You have people who want to support the study of it. What's the stumbling block?
There is some good news. First of all, we have new administration at Queens College, and we have a lot of support for Italian diaspora studies. That's the first thing, right? Not that we didn't have support before, but it's much more active, I would say. The second thing is that the Graduate Center has recently created what's called the Black Race and Ethnic Studies. Well, first it was an initiative, and now it's an institute, and they are beginning discussions about a doctoral program in Black Race and Ethnic Studies, and Italian American Studies should be part of it, will be part of it.
I've never seen the need for a whole degree in Italian or Italian diaspora studies, but just that when students want to work in the area, they should be able to.
Yeah.
And what better place? I mean, our Italian diaspora summer program is a perfect example. There's a need out there. We get 18 great students this year. Who knows how many we'll have next year? We've probably had an average of 15 or 12 to 15 students every year. That's more than a cohort of graduate students would be. We supported the program. We went out and got financial support, or the support came to us. And, what's missing here?
We have a couple of events coming up this fall that I think are significant, right? We have an event going on at the end of September in New Orleans, which is basically a dialogue about Italian Americans in New Orleans, but also the analogy, the affinities between Italian Americans and African Americans at a time when both, because African Americans continue to suffer from racial bias, whereas I think for the most part we can say, while there are still microaggressions that we would call them, that we're much less of a victim of that than we were in the past, right? But we have that going on in New Orleans, and we have a nice diverse mixture of people too,
Yeah, I'm
right?
looking
As far
forward
as
to that,
African Americans
yeah.
and Italian Americans.
It's been fundamental in my development as an American, as an Italian American, as a white American, having grown up across the tracks from a black community, Maywood and Melrose Park. I went through things that I really didn't understand until I left that area and began to study it. And it's really, to me, incredible how close and how far away Italian Americans and African Americans can be. So I'm really looking forward to this exchange in New Orleans.
Now, the other thing we have going on in late November, I always give you, Paolo, and Ferdinando credit because the three of you met in Rome in 2016. It was one of those, what if we did, why don't we do?
I just always wanted to go to Australia. I said, why don't you have a conference? He goes, what would I do the conference on?
Right.
And
go ahead, run with it.
Well,
so what happened? Where are we?
I brought it to you, and you said, okay, well, let's do a series of conferences. Let's do a conference in Australia on Italian diaspora studies, and let's bring together the whole world in this area. And that was a major paradigm shift, I think, for us who think in terms of Italian American culture. You know, when you think of Italian American culture, it's a small lake, so to speak. Within the larger Italian diaspora, it's a huge ocean. And dynamics, things begin to change. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the most exciting thing. So from there, from Australia, we brought it to New York with the Calandra Institute, next to Genoa, and it was supposed to be last year at Buenos Aires, but it's going to be this year, and it looks like it's going to happen. Who knows where it'll be next? We're going to begin looking, but the idea is to keep the discussion going and keep having these people encounter each other. I mean, I'd like to go to South Africa, maybe Taiwan, Italian diaspora all over the world, but just to begin to see how these experiences are similar and different. I think that's the key.
Mm-hmm. We should say that in Genova, we did it at what is now the National Museum for Immigration, and they just had a sort of soft launch. And so Italy will finally have its National Immigration Museum. Buenos Aires, we're going to do one day at the museum, right? The Immigration Museum. In fact, one of the main organizers is part of the administration at the museum, and then 2 days at a university, right? So it'll be 3 days as well in Buenos Aires. And so, and we've said this at the Calandra Institute, we've used the term, but we've sort of begun to really deconstruct it, let's say, the term diaspora and why diaspora is, let's say, more productive, right, than Italian American. Right. More productive and more broad looking, and also chronologically, it brings us into the present much more than, let's say, Italian American studies might.
It's much more transnational.
Right.
I mean, it goes across nations as opposed to, focused on the nations.
Yeah. Now, publication-wise, I think we're in good shape,
Absolutely.
right? We've got
presses, we've got great journals.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is a more prestigious kind of book award. The Italian American Studies Association gives a book award, but I like to see something a little bit more like the Strega Prize or something like that. When you begin to do work in Italian American Studies the way we did it, you find out soon enough that you don't advance to some lofty level. You're still sweeping floors. You're still taking the dust off the shelves. You're still writing grants. You're still on editing books. You're still setting type. It wasn't a progression from rags to riches. I mean, even though we're much richer than we were in the past, we still have to use our rags to clean up and do all the other work that we have to do. One thing my mother used to say is, she goes, I want you to leave a place better than you found it. And she meant my bedroom, she meant the room, but she also meant the world. You know, when we get to this stage in our lives, although I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon, but you never know, my legacy will be that I left it better than I found it, because there wasn't much there. It wasn't hard to do, but you know, you had to work at it.
There have been a number of books in sort of from a sociological, from a historical point of view that we've seen more or less from the beginning of the 20th century up through mid-century, maybe the 60s, right? And some of them indeed by non-Italian Americans, which is fine. You don't have to be Italian American to write about Italian Americans, right?
Don't.
It's open to everybody, and everybody should be able to talk about it. And actually, as we say in Italian, ben venga, welcome the other perspective, that is the perspective of someone who is not involved in Italian American studies or Italian American neighborhood, lifestyle, and yet looks at it from afar, right? So that perspective is always important. But we see, especially from the 70s on, from the 70s we had more or less one book, which was Rose Basile Green in 74, and then somewhere in the 80s some other books come out by some of the historians, the Italian American historians. I'm thinking of Donna Gabaccia, I'm thinking of Jans McLaughlin, Di Leonardo,
Right.
historical, sociological, anthropological, right? And then we have to wait until 96 for another book in literary studies, which is of course yours, Italian Science, American Streets. But then all of a sudden there's just this explosion of books, not just in literary studies, in history and sociology, et cetera, by university presses. And I say that only because, as we know, within the academy, from those who are in positions of power, right? The university press is, for better or for worse, the benchmark.
Exactly. What I found in terms of Italian American studies is that it's almost, as Rosa Morano once said, you know, we're American enough now that we could be Italian. Well, we know America well enough to know that it's not enough for us, and there's more here. And when that generation, you know, Marcus Hansen talked about the generation kind of skips. You know, my parents were struggling to be American. They didn't know you could be both.
Yeah.
And by giving us the chance to have an education, when we don't see what we are in what we study, we either accept that and move on and say we're of no value in this country, or we say, wait a minute, how come there's no wops on the wall? You know, to paraphrase a quote from Spike Lee. So I think it's really important to know that there's an Italian-American perspective that has been evolving. I say there are many Italian-American perspectives that have been evolving, whether it's in terms of gender, race, lifestyle. We weren't always white. Some of us are white and black, and some of us are, you know, Italian, and as we're finding out, you know, Ethiopian Italian and South African Italian. So there's much more to it than this, much more complex. And I think that's what makes the field ripe for new developments, like this new book on Dixie's Italians.
Jessica Barbata Jackson.
Who knew there was more to be said? And there's a lot more.
Yeah.
In trying to establish that there is an Italian-American studies, we had to stick to that. This is Italian-American, this is not Italian-American. Now that it's there and it's, you know, it's something that people have to reckon with, we could begin deconstructing it. You know, we had to build it before we could take it apart.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that's the most exciting thing about being an academic, is being able to take things apart. I have a brother who's an engineer. He's not, you know, he's never went to school for an engineer, but how did he learn things? By breaking things, fixing them, putting them back together. This is how students best learn. Even Maria Montessori put the kids in a room and just let them go with it. And I think we put these materials in front of our students, and if they want to argue with it, argue with it. But the idea is to build these strong arguments that are based on what they've read. The biggest problem I have with a lot of critics and some scholars today is that they haven't read what came before. And so they write something that, as if nothing else existed. But that, you know, we can go back to Vico. Vico said, when man can't understand something, he uses himself as the measure for the experience.
In moving forward in building programs, we need to get them supported, right? Italian American Studies, Italian Diaspora Studies doesn't have the cachet within the academy to get the support from the regular budgetary funding sources. we have to converse and we have to dialogue with and we have to collaborate with, and hopefully they collaborate with us, the numerous Italian American organizations that are out there that are well heeled and that can support programming, as some of them have supported other projects.
I've raised a lot of money in my experience with Italian American Studies, whether it was giving a talk or at a golf outing or a wine event or a big event. But the one thing I've always said to people is I raise consciousness, I don't raise money. If your consciousness is raised to the point, and if you have the money, put your hand in your pocket and take it. I'm not going to put my hand in your pocket and try to get it out of you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key. The key is to show people that there is this need, and the need can be filled, but it's not just going to be fulfilled with money. Like you said, we need to get the consciousness raised of the people inside the institutions, not just the people within the humanities or something, but the whole, and have them see this as such a serious area of study that it needs to be there, and let the money will come. Mm-hmm. You'll build it and it will come.
Mm-hmm. Let's consider this the first of a series of conversations, and then maybe in the future we can have one or two other people from those other worlds here with us.
Absolutely.
And see what the deal is.
Sounds
good. I would like to remind you that this week we begin our fall programming here at the Calandra Institute. Please check out our website at calandrainstitute.org for further information. Thanks for watching this episode of Italics. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.